Greetings, this is Corey S. with the Bull City Bulletin. It is August 2nd, 2014, and we've got a special interview lined up with Parker Emerson, who's a local activist who lives here in Chapel Hill, just down the road. And I met him originally in our efforts to have the Orange Water and Sewer Authority remove fluoride. But Parker recently reached out to me and sent me some very interesting correspondence between himself and the Chapel Hill Police Department and the Office of the Public Safety there at UNC. And this was concerning some signs that were put up on the UNC campus regarding the ability of people to conceal carry firearms. And according to some recent laws, which were recently passed through the North Carolina legislature, this is no longer legal. So Parker, welcome to the broadcast. I appreciate you giving us the time. I'd like you to just kind of walk us through your thought process, as well as the interactions that you had with the police department and then the Office of Public Safety there, and what's your whole goal with this, and what actually happened as a result of you sending those emails.
Okay, well, sure thing, Corey. I'd be happy to. Hope you're doing well today. And just every morning when I would drive to work, and I would notice that there are these signs. Every time I drive down Raleigh, there's a sign that's posted. It says, basically, all firearms are prohibited. So the prohibition of all firearms on UNC campus was the meaning of the sign that was posted there. And I was aware of the new law that had been enacted of the state legislature that allows students to concealed carry firearms if they have the permit, basically only in certain modes on campus. They can only keep it in a sealed, contained, locked compartment of their vehicle or in the trunk of their vehicle. But that at least lets them have access to firearms when they're going to and from campus. Say they leave campus, they can pull out their firearm and keep it as a self-defense tool. So it just kind of like got on my nerves that I would see this total ban on firearms posted as you're entering the campus every single day. So I figured, what can I do about it? So many times I've heard police officers tell me that it's their duty to uphold the law. It's my duty to uphold the law. And they just iterate that like it's
gospel.
Gospel, that's the word. And so I wanted to hold them to it. I said, here's the new law. Why don't you guys take these signs down? And I first emailed Officer Chief Chris Blue of the Chapel Hill Police Department. And he was so kind as to forward on my email to Officer McCracken, who's the chief of the UNC police. At which point they admitted, yes, these signs are not technically correct anymore. They need to be taken down. We were trying to take some of them down, but we missed some. Now, I don't know if they really tried to take them down or not. I bet there are more that are still up around campus, but I found 2 of them, so I photographed them. And I emailed the photographs of these signs to both police chiefs. And they were, the next day, they said, okay, thank you, we'll take them down. And I took them, and then the next day they were taken down. So they know how to get things done, I suppose. Now, whether or not that law is really just in allowing only students with concealed carry permits to carry handguns on campus, I'm not sure that really goes far enough. I think that your Second Amendment protections need to be more embraced liberal than that. Yeah. More liberal, They say liberal, the whole thing is that the Democrats aren't really liberals. They're not the real liberals. Right.
They've perverted the definition of that word. Right. So we're using it in the traditional sense, which is, erring towards more freedom.
Right.
So I wanted to get your perspective on this. I'm going to have the correspondence that you had with these officers posted below the video, but I thought it
Okay.
was a really good example of someone taking action when they notice something in their neighborhood that they think is unjust, and B, an actual success story, which are kind of rare these days, where you simply were polite, but you were also factual and just kind of
Right.
stuck to the issue. And it would have been interesting, of course, if they had tried to do something different. But I like this story because they just kind of complied. They really didn't have an argument. They just kind of said, you know what, you're correct. And so we'll go ahead and take that sign. Then you were able to
Hmm.
verify that they did take down the sign, right?
That's correct. It was gone the next day. Both of them were gone the next day.
Yeah, and I've got pictures up on, you can't see it, but on the broadcast, I've got the photos that you sent me of
Great.
those signs.
They'll, yeah, they're no longer there. So I captured those while they were still there.
What's your opinion about people's ability to, do you think that allowing people to carry guns on, school campuses is a good thing or a safer thing? Or, what's your opinion on that?
I would leave it kind of probably at the discretion uh, of the universities in a sense, but I think there needs to be a route or an option. I'm not like totally against gun control, but in order to get a gun in the first place, you have to have character references. You have to have
Right. So there are already laws on the books that
right.
protect us from, what you might say are criminal people wanting to get
And if
guns for nefarious purposes.
they're 21 years old, drinking is a big thing on campus, but putting the responsibility of carrying and taking care of and monitoring and keeping close a firearm for personal protection, that's not a responsibility that's taken lightly at all. So people who go after the concealed carry permit are generally sane people who they have to be sane people who are quite responsible with their firearms and cannot abuse drugs and alcohol. So if they've got these permits, they're literally testifying that they're not abusing drugs and alcohol. So they are actually an asset to the community. Like recently, this man, Professor Liu, was murdered just off of UNC campus. He was beaten to death.
It seems pretty
Rock. I mean, if a concealed carry person had seen this taking place and been able to intervene, these are easily avoidable murders if more people, towns that make people firearms are virtually crime free, whereas towns like Chicago that ban firearms are crime ridden. It's good to strike a balance.
It's kind of counterintuitive, but you may be familiar with the situation in Kennesaw, Georgia, where actually a neighboring county to Kennesaw had passed a local ordinance, basically banning any firearms, and subsequently the crime rate, the home burglaries and petty theft and things of that nature skyrocketed. And so kind of in rebellion, in defiance of that ordinance, the county Kennesaw, which was neighboring the one that had banned it, passed a law which actually required people, not required, but gave them the option to basically get kind of like a community-funded gun program where the guns would be kind of issued to the citizens, and they, of course, came with locks and things of that nature. But just by doing that, the murder rate, the petty theft rate, the carjackings, the home burglaries plummeted in Kennesaw. So it was a really good case study for the difference between a gun control law and then kind of like a pro-gun policy, what you might call it. I think that could be replicated everywhere. So I guess do you have a certain goal in mind, or are you just kind of irritated at the signs?
I think basically another related issue is fluoride, honestly. You look at fluoride, it's a neurotoxic chemical. Fluoride is a component in so many SSRI psychoactive drugs.
Right.
Fluoride itself is a psychoactive drug. When you have an entire city on fluoride, you're talking about increased agitation, most likely. You're talking about irrational
behavioral disorders,
behaviors,
learning disorders.
Not only should somebody who has a concealed carry permit, they should not be drinking fluoridated water. People carrying weapons should not be drinking fluoridated water and should avoid fluoride at all costs and increase their iodine intake as well. So, I mean, if you got a whole city that's fluoridating its water, and there needs to be that creates a danger on all levels.
Right. It is a multifaceted problem we have.
It's just a big issue, man. I mean, it's not just so cut and dry. You're drugging the whole population with psychoactive compounds, and you're banning weapons. So crazy people
but at the same
still be able to get weapons.
Right, and at the same time you have this increasingly militarized police force. You know, like when I saw your email,
who are also consuming the fluoride.
Of course. But it really resonated with me because there's a bus station near where I work, and at the bus station is one of these signs, just like they have in Chapel Hill. And right in front of it, almost every day, is a corporate police officer standing there with his gun, you know, strapped to his side. And the hypocrisy is kind of blatant, you know, because you, the citizen who's supposed to have an inalienable right to basically carry in the Constitution, it's you can open carry, both state and federal, you know, Constitution. But here's this officer. He can wear a badge and he can carry his gun, but you, the citizen, can't. It's an incredible time.
It's all part of brainwashing. You know, it's all part of Orwellian policy. Kind of double-speak policy in a sense, because you got, well, people going to a classical school for a classical education in classical political theory, preferably, you know, but this is all being thwarted, it's all being changed, and part of that is the implementation of a fascist agenda. So, I mean, if you had a more liberal environment, a school that really promoted true liberal values of freedom,
self-responsibility,
rights, then you would trust your population to carry firearms. But instead, you have a fascist regime that's fluoridating the population with psychoactive compounds and distrust of your school body. So it's totally confusing, honestly, to any normal, sane person. But we can make sense of it by getting away from fluoride, by establishing our rights and exercising them, and going back to really study the principles of freedom that were endowed in the Constitution by the Founding Fathers. Going back through history, through ancient common law, through the founding of ancient Greece and India and the ancient civilizations that have all enshrined those rights,
basic principles, which
to carry arms,
right, and
arms that are equivalent with those of the time, that will actually mean something in defending against tyranny.
Right, we can't let them and I think that's what you're kind of getting at with your statement, that the current law isn't even enough. You know, we have to win the victories where we can, albeit if they're small. But we can't let them define what's an appropriate gun either. You know, frankly, I'm kind of offended that they would only want it to be locked away into a box in your car. Because I know a woman who moved to Florida, and she owns a gun, but she kept it safely, legally in a box in her car, and she got mugged in a parking lot. She didn't have access to it. And the hypocrisy, it is totally useless. I mean, if you carry concealed and you don't have the license, you know, people say, oh, well, if you get caught, you know, carrying that concealed without a license, then you could be, you know, deemed a felon. Well, how would they
Oh.
find out that you're carrying it concealed unless you no longer conceal it? It would have to be exposed, at which point it's no longer concealed and open carry is completely legal. So,
That is true. That is a paradox of sorts, isn't it?
right? So, anyways, I appreciate, the email, the correspondence, the action, and the success that you had with this sign issue.
Game plan. Definitely get the fluoride injunction ASAP started.
Well, tell people.
Number
that
two,
a lot of people don't know what you're talking about with this fluoride injunction. Why don't you?
we're gonna get an injunction against the addition of a psychoactive compound into the public water supply. It is a drug. The FDA defined it with a national drug code number. It is clearly a drug, and in numerous general statutes the North Carolina state legislature has enacted, it clearly bans the practice of medicine without a license. And part of that includes the distribution, wholesale or otherwise, of prescription-only drugs, and the FDA defines fluoride as a prescription-only drug. So it's open and shut case. They will get an injunction handed to them, and there will be a court order, inshallah, that this practice of adding fluoride to the water stops.
If we actually ended it here in the Triangle, what do you think would happen to the psychology of the people in the years following, where they're no longer exposed to a intelligence inhibiting compound that is
I'll tell you.
Tell me.
The economy would pick up like wildfire. The economy would be
because people would start inventing things and creating
out. Yeah, you'd have more people, have more energy, people have more rational thought to be able to
understand their surroundings and create,
communicate better. All of this, they're going to communicate with each other on a level that they're not doing right now.
Right.
So that's naturally going to increase sales. That's naturally going to increase business. That's naturally going to make more competition, get people active and motivated.
What do you think it would do to the psychology of these different sorts of kind of overreaches, like with the signage and all of the ordinances which seek to regulate people? How do you think ending the fluoridation policy would affect that? Don't you think people would start to become more aware and maintain some awareness about that?
I would, but I would also say that, I remember when the police shot a handcuffed man to death in the back of a police vehicle in Durham not long ago.
Jesus Huerta. Right?
We're gonna have police who are gonna think before they do things like that more. They're gonna hesitate before they just take somebody's life. They're not gonna. I consider fluoride an irritant, a psychological irritant, a physical irritant, a biochemical irritant. And when people get irritated with themselves, with others, because they don't understand basic principles of fundamental human liberties, when they don't understand what their own cognitive processes
they're in a state of confusion
could be, and they can't get access to their own cognitive functions like nature intended them for them to do, they get angry, and they express that anger through violence and bullyism and really just tyranny.
Well, Parker, thank you so much for coming on the program today. Keep up the good work and keep us updated on any new developments, not just with the Second Amendment fight there in Chapel Hill, but also the fluoride.
Sure thing, Corey. Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good weekend.
You too, Corey. Take it easy. Peace.